but know that I follow the code of goblin chivalry.
Do me a favor, empty your mind. Pretend like you didn't read the title of this video. When I say classic D&D monster, what comes to mind? Orcs? Sure. Kobolds? Yes. Dragons? I won't dignify that with a response. Gelatinous cube? Original, creative. Flail snail. Do you picture a flail snail? When I say classic D&D monster, you misguided Obviously, goblins are up there. And why is that? Is it because they're just put in the monster manual as one of the first weaker monsters? Is it tradition? Is it because D&D is inspired a lot by Lord of the Rings? As part of my research for this video, I looked at a bunch of other YouTubers to see what they had said about goblins.
Small, green, scampering things rushing through.
Goblins.
Goblin.
Goblin.
Kissing goblin.
Goblins. Goblins.
I need every single goblin!
Goblins.
The goblin.
Kill goblin.
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 Goblins.
We should attack them.
Similar to academia, when a bunch of people are looking at the same topic, all from slightly different angles, certain themes start to appear. Number 1, goblins are weak and used as cannon fodder. Number 2, they are usually used as a minion or some obstacle, but very rarely are they the main antagonist. 3, goblins are usually the servants of other creatures like hobgoblins or orcs. Due to how weak they are, goblins are only suited for low-level campaigns. Often in these videos, the topic of goblins being innately evil comes up.
Kill goblin. We gotta see what's inside this cave already.
It speaks common.
I don't care if she speaks Netherese. We have to go.
Listen, she's sorry.
I'm sorry.
She's obviously evil.
Due to problematic portrayals of goblins and the similes to real-world peoples, the community seems to be leading away from these innate evil creatures and more humanizing them and adding more redeeming characteristics. More and more goblins' Feywild origins are being emphasized in the source books and in the lore.
But know that I follow the code of goblin chivalry with every fiber of my being.
The space that goblins used to fill, that being little dangerous, destructive, chaotic beings, is being filled more with gremlin-like portrayals. Odds are, goblins were one of the first, if not the first thing you ever fought in D&D. Let me get this out of the way. I am part of the problem. My very first session of D&D, the very first scene that I ever ran as a dungeon master, was a bunch of goblins attacking the players on the road. It looked a little something like this. More so a vinyl map with some wet erase markers and some plastic miniatures, but you get the gist. Goblins basically have the stats of a human, with the 14 dexterity being the standout. Goblins were clearly born with glass bones and paper skin. Armor class of 15, hit points of 7. This means unless you're using a wiffle ball bat, you can take them out in one hit.
What are you going to do now, wizard? That'll do it.
And the goblins know this. That's why they have the combination of a +6 to stealth and the nimble escape feature to disengage or hide as a bonus action on each of their turns, kind of borrowing off the rogue. Goblins are built to be strikers. They're meant to attack, hide, disengage, get out of there as soon as they can. As is, to pose any sort of threat to the party, goblins need 2 things: stealth and numbers. Even the slightly chonkier goblin boss only has the health of 3 goblins and the damage output of 2 goblins. So let's revisit my very first D&D encounter. Here's a synopsis. Goblins jump out of bushes, goblins shoot players, players run up and kill goblins. Without changing the goblin stat block, how can I make this encounter more challenging, more thought-provoking, more dangerous? Brack, born amongst a local goblin tribe, a cut above in terms of intelligence and wisdom. They saw that the goblin tribe was filled with inner conflict and turmoil. This inner conflict was keeping their people down compared to the other humanoids of the world. Brack decided to step up and become a leader, putting aside any selfish tendencies and focusing on a greater goal.
Creature, what is it that you want?
Fred, what we want is, I think, what everyone wants, and what you and your viewers have. Civilization.
Brack started with bloodless kidnappings of skilled artisans. They would kidnap these people, bring them out to the goblin tribe, and force them to teach the goblins their trade. The goblins would kidnap teachers to learn how to read and write, blacksmiths to learn how to forge weapons. And once the people served their purpose, the goblins would simply let them go, sometimes even pay them for their trouble. While this was happening, Brack would take the warriors of the tribe out and deploy highwayman-like tactics. In a very Robin Hood or Claude Duval-like way, demand valuables from local passing nobles or merchants, always in a very polite, non-violent manner. The problem of goblins being individually weak still remained, however, so Brack, using his armor and weapon advantages, went out and conquered a bunch of other goblin tribes. By the time the players confront Brack, he's gonna have like 300 goblins at his back. Bringing us right into the adventure hook. Just before the party arrives in town, a daring goblin raid kidnapped a very high-profile noble, and the party are hired to track him down. The players ride out of town and have their very first encounter with these goblins. This is the time to subvert their expectations. The goblins surround the party, surprising them, but don't immediately open fire. One of them steps out, begins talking with an eloquence and a very refined vocabulary. They don't seem eager for violence, they simply demand some of the party's money.
Give us all your stuff. We'll probably have to kill one of you, that's just the way it is, but then we can start moving forward on business. All you have to do is listen.
Now, if by some miracle your players don't immediately engage in violence, which don't be surprised if they do, the goblins might actually request the players teach them a skill, or they might demand their money, or they might demand a service. If the party plays their cards right, they might get invited back to the goblin camp where the noble is being held. This is your chance to really push the intimidation factor of Brack, the other goblins referring to Brack in that, in a Walking Dead style moment. We demand half your stuff in the name of Brack.
Hand over your weapons.
Why should we?
Well, they're not yours.
What?
See, your weapons, your truck, the fuel in your truck, if you got mints in your glove compartment, none of those things are yours anymore.
Whose are they?
Your property now belongs to
Brack. This is your chance to really hype up Brack as a villain. Remember, people don't expect a goblin to be the boss of other goblins. So, half your stuff is Brack's now. Brack is our leader. Brack is the big boss. What the encounter should communicate, though, is that the goblins are well-informed, organized, and not to be taken lightly. However the encounter goes, you want the players thinking, wow, these goblins are kind of badass and we should probably be careful around them. Goblin encounters are usually encouraged to be tricky, to be full of traps, to have the goblins have the home field advantage, and to never show their faces. You can turn this trope on its head, though, by having the goblins, yes, be prepared, and yes, have an ambush set up, but they have the training, they have the armor, they have the weapons, they are not afraid of the party, and they show it. The goblins lay out their terms, which they see as very reasonable to these strangers that are trespassing in their lands as they see it. They want to know what the party can do for them, not so much just kill them and take their stuff. If combat does break out, then you can display some real military tactics, having the goblins shoot, hide, throw beehives or pre-prepared traps. Check out Runesmith's video on that for more. So there you go, we have a goblin encounter where there is some nuance and some options other than the goblins being immediately slaughtered by the high-level adventurers. While we didn't change their stats, we did change the perception of them, their motivation, the context. Another theme identified in my YouTuber meta-analysis would be that goblins are very adaptable, and I want to take that a step further. For our second encounter, a wagon hauling magical supplies and potions from one city to the next has been captured by a group of goblins. Having goblins rapidly adapt to their environment is a fun concept. What if goblins are so adaptive, so sensitive to their environments that even temporary magical effects have lasting, permanent effects on them? Human drinks a potion of flying, gains a flying speed for like an hour. A goblin that drinks a enlarge potion is just permanently gigantic.
I think there are some fascinating ramifications here for the future.
As for a plot hook, you could have a mage guild hire the party to track down the cart. Party finds a bunch of tracks with crushed potions, and they follow it to the goblin hideout. Goblins attack, and all of them have superpowers and are way more difficult than the party thought. So that's how you can run goblins in your games, or at least 2 examples. Obviously, goblins are one of the most versatile D&D monsters due to their simplicity. You can pretty much put them into any game at any time, and with the right set dressing, you can make them work. Hopefully, I've given you 1 or 2 new ideas for your next goblin encounter. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, were entertained, or ideally both. If this video has been worth your time, please subscribe. I make videos whenever I feel like it, so stay tuned for more at some point. And if you watched to the end of this video, I thank you very much, and I hope you roll a natural 20 on your next death saving throw. Goodbye.
your property now belongs to
Brack.